guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla. I am a mom of two boys. I make lifestyle and mommy videos here on YouTube. Expelliarmus. That was pretty good. This video is going to be on tongue and lip ties and breastfeeding and how it affected breastfeeding. I dealt with it 4 years ago with my first. I dealt with it a year ago with my second. I'm just gonna get into the video. If you want to see more mom videos, first time mom videos, breastfeeding, baby, birth vlogs, make sure to subscribe down below. All right, first of all, we're gonna talk about like what a tongue tie is, a lip tie is. It's when the frenulum, they call it, that little string of tissue connecting your tongue to your mouth, when that, or up here between your tongue and your teeth, is either it's too thick or it's too short, and because it is not stretchy or thin or whatever enough, it's called being tongue-tied and lip-tied, and it can create issues with breastfeeding in terms of like baby. You know, they could be like failure to thrive if they're not getting enough milk from you. They can cause a lot of issues with moms and breastfeeding and nipple injuries basically with feeding baby, and it can cause issues down the line with like speech difficulties and gaps in your teeth. I am not a speech therapist or a speech pathologist. I am not a pediatric dentist. I am not a doctor. I'm not a nurse, but I am a mom of two that dealt with this, and yeah, this is my experience. So both of my boys were tongue-tied and lip-tied. I am probably still tongue-tied. I know of extended family members that have tongue-tied, that are dealing with tongue ties, like on both sides, Taylor's side, my side. They are now being talked about, which is what I'm going to get into with my next point. Way back when, they were actually being tied in general and treating tongue ties, snipping them in the hospital quick. It was an acknowledged thing. It was talked about, or like a known thing, and they just snipped it quick. Then formula came into the picture. At least this is what I have read and what I've been told. When moms aren't breastfeeding as much, you don't notice it as much. Baby seems to be getting food fine from a bottle maybe, and so they kind of went on the back burner. I think they weren't talked about enough. Doctors were not trained on them, nurses. Now with the whole breast is best campaign, which fed is best, but trying to promote breastfeeding and the swing that we took towards breastfeeding recently. Once that started, people were having issues, and they're like, okay, why are there latch issues? Why can baby not eat correctly? Why are moms having so much pain? People realize that it's because of tongue ties. I don't know, like some ENTs and doctors think that it's being like overdiagnosed, but there are lots of lactation consultants that think that doctors often don't catch it either. So there's like a big spectrum here. There's articles, there's opinions. I'm neutral. I mean, I'm not really neutral, but I try to understand all sides. So baby is not latched correctly, which means that they can't do with their tongue what they need to do in order to get milk. They essentially, and I can attest to this, when it gets really bad and it's not dealt with, they are basically chewing on your nipple. Not getting milk correctly, they're just like gnawing on your nipple. And you're feeding them every 2 hours, or cluster feeding. You get no break at all to heal, to recover from the gnawing. In terms of your doctor and nurse, if you go to a hospital to have your baby, it's not like a doula or a midwife. I'm not like completely like naturally sighted. I had a doctor, an OBGYN, and my mom is a nurse. I wanted to start this off and preface this little point with saying that I believe in medicine and I believe in science. I believe that God can really equip scientists with great brains and research and stuff like that. So I believe in the natural, God-given side of things, and I believe in science as a topic. I'm just saying that I believe that doctors are smart people, but a lot of doctors and a lot of nurses are not educated in this topic completely. They know about ties, they are taught about them a little bit, but if you go to a pediatric dentist and get their take on it, a lot of times they have led me to believe that they are a little more knowledgeable in the area, and I have seen that to be true. So what I'm trying to say is, don't solely trust your doctor and your nurse. Get a second opinion. If you ever think that your baby has a tongue tie or a lip tie, get a second opinion. Very, 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 very often, a nurse will look at baby and either say, nah, they're not tongue tied, or no, they're not tied. Or they look at baby, and this is what happened with both of my kids. They will look at baby and be like, oh yeah, it looks like he's got a little tie. It looks like he's a little tied. But yeah, they were not like just tied. I needed treatment for them. For my sake and for our breastfeeding journey and being able to feed them, it was necessary. Apparently, they are more common in boys than they are in girls, and they run in families. Like I said, I've seen this to be true. Most doctors and nurses will look at it and maybe move some things around, or maybe just kind of, look down. But when a pediatric dentist does it, they get in there and super quick. They actually come from above and really look and really feel, and they're like, yeah, he's super duper tied. I'll be aware of that, I guess. So there's different types. There's like different levels, I think, different degrees. My boys were both like severely tied. Like it was very tight. Yeah, when she went and did Quinn's, she said that when she released it with the laser, which I'll talk about, it was way more tied than she had even thought. She was surprised, the pediatric dentist that does this all the time, how much it released when she did it. I want to talk about treatments. Most of the time in the past, especially before formula, doctors just snipped it. Newborns, it was almost like routine. Baby's so little, doesn't even realize it, goes home. The other treatment is to have a frenectomy, same type of thing, where they snip it, but baby is too old now, so it's not a newborn, so they need to go under general anesthesia. Outpatient surgery. And then the other option is to take them to a pediatric dentist that does this all the time. And they actually use a laser, which sounds intense, but it's not. They just laser it really, really quickly. Laser it really, really quickly. It's done in literally like less than 30 seconds. And they're awake for it and swaddled and cuddled. The last thing that I want to talk about before I talk about our experience and the difference that it made is that a lot of the times you have to do stretches after you get a tongue tie revised. And a lot of the times if you get it just snipped in the hospital by a doctor, an ENT, a lot of them don't know to teach you to do the stretches, and they suck. They're terrible, actually. The baby hates them, you hate them, whatever, but it's supposed to prevent reattachment. As a tip, if anyone's going through this, is that I would do the stretches. They really suck in the middle of the night. You're supposed to do them every time you feed them. So what I would do, baby was already kind of mad. They were kind of hungry, wanting to be fed right then, right there anyway. So I just did the stretches then. They're already hungry. They're mad at me. They're crying. I'm going to do the stretches quick. Doesn't take too long, really, like a minute, and then I would feed them. So that's my tip to you. That's the order that I would do it in, because then I could feed them and comfort them. So that's the order I did it in. Now I'm going to talk to you about my experience with it. So I have a video on here about my breastfeeding story with Beckham. Basically, he fed all the time at first, way longer than I needed to, but I didn't know that. And so I just left him on all the time. And he wasn't really getting anything. On our way out of the hospital, a nurse just happened to come in and say like, oh yeah, he does look a little tied. And then like left. And that's all we heard of it. And we didn't know what really that meant. We didn't know that it was something to even think about, let alone to deal with or do anything about. And so I get home and I'm already kind of not feeling great in terms of feeding him, but that's kind of normal. So it was really hard because I would look up stuff and people would be like, yeah, it gets better after like a couple days, or oh yeah, it gets better after a week, just make it to a week. And so I'm like, okay, I think I'm doing it right, I just gotta get through it. Well, also the thing that's tricky about it is that a lot of the times babies that are tongue-tied, their latch looks fine, especially to a nurse or a doctor that's looking at it and isn't a lactation consultant. They look fine. They look like they're eating just fine with both kids. So I went 1, 2, 3 weeks of feeding Beckham with a tongue tie, and he was not latching well at all. The only reason why he was gaining weight was because I have an overactive letdown. TMI. They just get so much milk all the time for months on end. So he was getting plenty of milk. Once my milk came in, he wasn't starved. And so it didn't cause weight issues with him. They were both huge. But it caused so many issues with me. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. It was terrible. It was terrible. It got to the point where I was totally, I was just cracked, like, and bleeding. You're feeding them every 2 hours. So you're cracked and bleeding and red and like almost like blistered and and then you get done feeding them and they have like an hour, hour and a half of sleeping, and then they're mad again and you gotta do it again. On top of that cracked bleeding. I would rather give birth than do that again. I would give birth 1,000,000 times over than do that again. Not 1,000,000 times. But anyway, I'll stop talking about it too much in detail, but I would feed him and I would yell. I would like scream. I would just yell. I'm not a yeller. I would just cry and cry. I couldn't have Taylor in the room because it was too painful for me. I didn't want anyone to see me like that. I would latch him on and I would yell out in pain because it was so bad. So eventually I was like, we got to get this seen. And even then you're waiting on appointments to see an ENT to check him out. They want to fix it, but they want to put him under general anesthesia. I was not comfortable with that with my 3-week-old because I had read about the laser revision and I knew that they did that in Iowa. I'm sure he probably would have been fine, but I'm like, I'm not going to put my baby under anesthesia when they don't need it. I'll tell you this part too because it's the same scenario with Quinn. You hand them baby and they take him back and they swaddle him up, put these little goggles on him to protect their eyes, and they just know how to do it quick. They have a little laser. They take a picture of it first, so you have pictures, before and after pictures. They just use this laser thing on it. It releases the tie, that tight little piece of skin, basically. It's just like your earlobe or your nose. So it's not really, that part's not, I don't think, too painful for them. From the time they take baby from you and the time they brought each baby back to us, it was like 2 minutes. And then right when I got them, I feed him to comfort him even more. And neither time were they crying. I felt immediate difference feeding him right after. Then it was just not as big of a difference after that for a little long while because I was so hurt and damaged. And so I had to heal. Once I healed, I fed him for 17 months. So I believe in tongue tie revision. I believe they are real. I believe that the laser is a great option. It's pricey, but insurance covered a lot of it. So that was my experience with Beckham. With Quinn, I knew differently. I knew that I did not ever want to go through that again. I was like, when they put him on my belly, I'm gonna check it. And it was again mentioned that, I think he's tied, but it's not too bad. We called them the day Quinn was born, I believe. And they actually were able to get us in when Quinn was 4 days old, and they are out of town. And the night before, we got 45 minutes of sleep because Quinn was choking on stuff all night. And then we got in the car and drove an hour and a half with a newborn in a pandemic to get this laser revision done. So that's how much I believe in it and how much it helped us. But it was a little stressful. And it was the pandemic, so I could only go in. So I didn't have any help with like the diaper bag and the car seat and the baby and the little socks falling down and you had to change his little diaper. And it was a lot. It was a very stressful kind of day, but the part of the laser revision was not, because I knew what to expect. It went the same way. They swaddled him, they took him. I could hear him cry a little bit, and then he came back to me, was not crying, fed great, got in the car, slept, we went home. I am still feeding him. He is 14 months soon, and I still feed him like 3 times a day. I hope soon. I think it's gonna get to just like morning and nights, but obviously it worked for us again. I believe in them. I can see the difference between a baby that's literally just chewing and gnawing and a baby that can actually use their tongue correctly. So as a mom, I definitely have seen what the difference it makes. I hope to just give you this information, my experience. You can talk to lactation consultants, you can talk to your doctor, you can talk to your nurses. They're all great. Get second opinions from an ENT if you need to, from lactation consultants. I believe in people. I believe in collaboration for the sake of your newborn. So I don't think that this side and this side and this side. I think we all work together for the sake of helping moms and newborns. And for me, that was working with a pediatric dentist and getting the laser revision, and it was great. So if you have any questions, I actually have comments on down below. goodness. You can also message me on Instagram. If you see this in a couple years from now, you can still message me on Instagram. I know a lot of people will rewatch like my old breastfeeding videos because people keep having babies. So I'm gonna go film some more videos on babies and moms and life with kids, but thanks for watching this one. I hope it helped you out, and I will see you guys in my next video.